On the morning of September 11th, 2001, the sky over the East Coast was a brilliant cloudless blue. At Boston's Logan International Airport, American Airlines Flight 11 was preparing for what should have been a routine transcontinental journey to Los Angeles. The aircraft was a Boeing 767-223ER, a large, wide-body jet designed for long-haul flights. Its fuel tanks were nearly full, a detail that would later prove to be a crucial and devastating part of a meticulously planned attack. On board were 92 people, 81 passengers, 2 pilots, and 9 flight attendants. For everyone on that plane, it was supposed to be just another Tuesday, a day of travel and reunions that would end under the California sun. The crew of Flight 11 was a team of experienced professionals. In the cockpit sat Captain John Ogonowski and First Officer Thomas McGinnis Jr., both seasoned pilots with years of flying for American Airlines. In the cabin, a dedicated team of 9 flight attendants prepared to ensure the safety and comfort of their passengers. Among them were Betty Ong and Amy Sweeney, 2 women whose courage in the face of unimaginable horror would provide the world with the first terrifying details of the day's events. They were the familiar, reassuring faces of air travel, part of the fabric of countless ordinary journeys that crisscrossed the nation every single day. Among the 81 passengers, however, were 5 men who had boarded the plane not to travel, but to transform it into a weapon. They were members of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. Their leader, seated in business class in seat 8D, was Mohammed Atta, the operational mastermind of the entire 9/11 plot. He was joined by 4 accomplices, Abdulaziz Al-Omari, Walid Al-Sheri, Wael Al-Sheri, and Satam Al-Sukami. These men had passed through airport security, carrying concealed weapons like box cutters, and blended in with the other travelers, their true intentions hidden behind a facade of normalcy. At 7:59 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, American Airlines Flight 11 lifted off from the runway in Boston. The plane ascended into the clear morning sky, turning west toward its destination. For the first 15 minutes, everything appeared perfectly normal. The pilots communicated with air traffic controllers, following standard procedures as they guided the massive jetliner on its course. Passengers settled in for the long flight ahead, perhaps reading, sleeping, or gazing out at the diminishing landscape below. Nothing suggested that this flight, this day, would be unlike any other in history, or that the lives of everyone on board were about to be irrevocably shattered. The period of calm was brutally short-lived. At approximately 8:14 a.m., just as the flight was climbing over central Massachusetts, the hijackers made their move. The last routine radio communication from Captain Ogonowski had occurred just moments before. Suddenly and with shocking violence, the terrorists launched their assault. They are believed to have used box cutters and knives to attack at least 2 flight attendants. They also reportedly used mace or pepper spray to overwhelm the cabin crew and passengers near the front of the plane, creating chaos and confusion. Their primary objective was to breach the cockpit, a sanctuary that was, at the time, not fortified as it is on modern aircraft. Once the attack began, the hijackers quickly overpowered the crew members standing between them and their goal. They forced their way into the cockpit, where they either killed or incapacitated Captain Ogonowski and First Officer McGinnis. With the pilots neutralized, Mohammed Atta, who had some flight training, took control of the aircraft. At 8:21 a.m., a critical signal from the plane went silent. The transponder, a device that transmits the aircraft's identity, altitude, and speed to air traffic controllers, was deliberately turned off. On the radar screens below, Flight 11 became a ghost, its precise location suddenly a mystery. The plane was now under the complete control of terrorists. The silence from the cockpit was broken in a chilling and unexpected way. At 8:24 a.m., a voice was broadcast over the air traffic control frequency. It was Mohammed Atta, who, in his attempt to address the passengers, had mistakenly pressed the wrong button. Controllers on the ground heard him say, "We have some planes. Just stay quiet and you'll be okay. We are returning to the airport." The message was startling and confusing. The mention of planes in the plural suggested a coordinated attack, a possibility so terrible it was almost incomprehensible. A few moments later, another broadcast came through. "Nobody move. Everything will be okay." With the hijackers in command, the Boeing 767 began to deviate sharply from its westward path. Instead of continuing toward California, the plane made a sweeping turn to the south, heading directly for New York City. On the ground, air traffic controllers at the Boston Air Route Traffic Control Center were scrambling to understand what was happening. They tried repeatedly to re-establish contact with Flight 11, but their calls went unanswered. The accidental transmissions from Atta, combined with the loss of the transponder signal and the radical change in course, painted a horrifying picture. They knew the plane was hijacked, but they didn't yet know its target. While the hijackers controlled the cockpit, two flight attendants in the rear of the plane made a series of desperate and heroic phone calls that provided the first real-time accounts of the unfolding terror. Using airphones located in the galley, Betty Ong and Amy Sweeney became the world's first witnesses to the 9/11 attacks. At 8:19 a.m., Betty Ong managed to connect with an American Airlines reservation center. Her voice, though strained with fear, was remarkably calm and clear as she relayed the horrific situation. "The cockpit's not answering," she reported. "Somebody's stabbed in business class, and I think there's mace that we can't breathe. I don't know, I think we're getting hijacked." For 23 harrowing minutes, Ong remained on the line, providing a running commentary of the events inside the cabin. She confirmed that the hijackers had gained access to the cockpit and that the plane was flying erratically. Her call was a critical piece of the puzzle for authorities on the ground, offering concrete details that confirmed the hijacking was violent and in progress. Her professionalism and bravery in those final moments provided invaluable information that helped the airline and federal officials begin to grasp the scale of the crisis. Her call was a lifeline, a voice of reason cutting through the chaos from 30,000 feet in the air. At the same time, flight attendant Amy Sweeney was on another line, speaking with an American Airlines flight services manager in Boston. Her call, which lasted approximately 12 minutes, added more chilling details. She reported that a hijacker had slit the throat of a fellow flight attendant and that the men were armed with knives. She was also able to provide the seat numbers of the attackers, crucial information that would later help identify them. In one of her last heartbreaking statements as she looked out the window, she said, "I see water. I see buildings. I see buildings." Her voice trailed off as she described the plane flying dangerously low. In total, at least 5 calls were made from the plane by crew members, each one a desperate attempt to convey the gravity of their situation. These calls were not just cries for help. They were detailed reports from the front lines of an attack that was still invisible to the rest of the world. The calm and courage displayed by Betty Ong and Amy Sweeney, who stayed on the phone relaying information even as they knew their own lives were in mortal danger, stand as a powerful testament to their training and character. Their final words provided the first draft of history for the events of September 11th. As Amy Sweeney described the buildings getting closer, American Airlines Flight 11 was in its final moments. Under the control of Mohammed Atta, the plane was now screaming across the sky over Lower Manhattan. On the streets below, New Yorkers enjoying the beautiful morning looked up, their curiosity turning to disbelief and then to horror. The sight of a massive commercial jetliner flying so low and so fast over one of the most densely populated areas on the planet was utterly unprecedented. It was clear this was no accident. The plane was on a deliberate guided path toward the iconic Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. At 8:46 and 40 seconds a.m., the journey of Flight 11 came to a cataclysmic end. The Boeing 767, laden with thousands of gallons of jet fuel, slammed into the North Tower, striking the building between the 93rd and 99th floors. The impact was immense, creating a massive fireball and sending a shockwave through the city. All 92 people on board the aircraft, the 81 passengers, 11 crew members, and the 5 hijackers were killed instantly. In that single horrific moment, the plane ceased to be a mode of transportation and became the first weapon unleashed in a war that America had not yet realized it was fighting. The crash of Flight 11 marked the beginning of the deadliest terrorist attack in human history. For those on the ground and for millions watching on live television, the image of the burning tower was seared into the collective consciousness. Initially, many assumed it was a terrible accident, a tragic pilot error. But 17 minutes later, when a second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, struck the South Tower, the horrifying truth became undeniable. This was a coordinated, deliberate act of war, and the crash of Flight 11 was its opening salvo. The fires from the impact would eventually weaken the steel structure of the North Tower, causing it to collapse at 10:28 a.m. The story of American Airlines Flight 11 is a tragic chapter in our nation's history, a chronicle of ordinary lives caught in an extraordinary act of hatred. The final brave communications from its crew provided the first alert to a world that was about to be changed forever. The flight that was supposed to end in Los Angeles instead ended in a cloud of fire and smoke in the heart of New York City, ushering in a new era of global conflict, heightened security, and a shared enduring memory of the day the sky fell. The 92 souls aboard were the first victims of 9/11, and their story remains a solemn reminder of the human cost of terror.